Chapter 288, Before the Journey, 4. Inside of a fairly decorated household, cheerful laughter and the voices of people discussing something could be heard. On a large table, sat a family of 8, composed of 2 males and 6 females. Lifting her fork and waving it in the air, the eldest-looking female sibling spoke up. "Hear this, today when I was diving inside of a dungeon with my squad, we managed to find a ranked core." "Really? That is fantastic!" the father exclaimed in surprise. Taking a bit of the food on the fork, the eldest female sibling continued.
"Yeah.
According to the appraisal results, it seems like the core will sell for a lot of money. The commission will be around 1 million U. 1 million? My God, that's fantastic!" her mother praised. "Dinner is on you then, sis." Whilst the family was joking with each other, sitting towards the right side of the table, a girl with a small petite body and large eyes tried to speak up multiple times. Unfortunately for her, no one was able to notice her struggle as everyone was too busy listening to the eldest's recount of her day at work. Ava? This continued for a couple of minutes until finally, her mother noticed her. "What is wrong, Ava? Is there something that you want to say?" I. Shyly lowering her head, Ava tried to speak up. However, the words that she wanted to say never came out of her mouth. "Come on, Ava, don't be shy. Just tell us what you want." Her oldest sister kindly smiled as she encouraged. "We're family. We won't judge you." Biting her lower lip, Ava clenched her small fists. After a while, looking up towards her parents and siblings and mustering all of her courage, Ava said, I would like to drop out of the lock." Ava suddenly dropped a bombshell, and the room turned completely silent. Clank! The silence continued for a while until it was disrupted by the sound of forks dropping on the plates. Almost simultaneously, everyone stood up and looked at Ava with concern. "What? What are you doing, Ava? Is everything okay? Are they bullying you at the lock?" Under the barrage of questions, Ava was unable to answer as she buried her head towards her chest. "Guys, please calm down. Let Ava talk." Noticing Ava's predicament, Ava's mother raised her hand and gestured everyone to quiet down. It was then that everyone noticed Ava's state and quieted down. Finally managing to get everyone to stop talking, Ava's mother walked up to Ava. Bending down, she touched her hand and softly asked, "Ava, please tell us why you want to drop out of the lock. Is it perhaps because they are bullying you? Or is it something else?" The lock's competitive nature was quite well known. It wasn't a rare occurrence for students to drag other students down just so that they could stand on top of them. Although controversial, it was this type of competitive nature that granted the best results. Ava's mother was currently fearing that her daughter was being treated this way due to her shy nature and character. Throwing a grateful look at her mother, with her fingers fidgeting, Ava softly muttered, "And no, it's not that? Then why do you want to drop out?" her mother asked. Secretly, she was breathing a sigh of relief. As long as Ava was not getting bullied, then nothing else mattered. Once again fidgeting, Ava responded, "Why, you see, the point of joining the lock was for me to develop my abilities so that I can get a job, but for the past 2 years, I've not really learned anything that I already didn't know." Although the lock was the #1 academy in the human domain, the beast tamer profession was just that rare. Although there was a couple of ranked beast tamers, of them chose to work for the lock for one simple reason: the exorbitant cost needed to maintain their beasts. In order to maintain their beasts and help them involve an absurd amount of money needed to be invested, and the lock did not provide enough money for that. As such, there was no one that could teach Ava. The only thing she could do was learn how to control her scions better. Also, I've already found a job that pays well. A job? How come I've only heard about this now? Ava's mother stood up. Ava? Could they have scammed you? Given Ava's personality, this was a very real possibility. No, I have signed a contract already. What? You signed a contract without consulting us first? Ava's father suddenly interrupted the conversation. Then extending his hand towards Ava, he seriously asked. Show me the contract now. Oh, okay. Scared by her father's sudden outburst, Ava complied and took out her contract. Handing it to her father, she softly muttered. I've already checked it, and I don't think that this is a scam. I'll be the judge of that. Taking out his glasses, Ava's father snatched the contract off of her hand and seriously looked at it. However, upon looking through the contract, he couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. What the? Father, what is it? Did Ava get scammed? Honey, is everything okay? Shh. Be quiet. He exclaimed as he read through the contract. The more he read the contract, the more his jaw opened. Eventually, it fully opened, forming a large O shape. Noticing his odd behavior, Ava's mother and siblings worriedly looked at him. They all knew about Ava's weak and shy nature. It wouldn't come as a surprise to them if Ava got scammed. However, contrary to their expectations, Ava's father shook his head. Then, with trembling hands, he looked at Ava and asked. Are the contents of this contract true? Why yes, it's a mana contract. Ava nodded her head. Oh my God. Covering his mouth with his hand, Ava's father weakly slumped on his chair. Father, what is wrong? Honey? Now convinced about the fact that Ava had gotten scammed due to his reaction, everyone quickly took the contract from his hands and started reading it. What? Exclamation point. However, upon reading the terms of the contract, they all showed similar reactions to the father as they speechlessly looked at Ava, who was sitting in her seat. Being stared at by everyone in the family, Ava lowered her head even more. Then, looking at them, she asked. So, can I go? At the same time. In front of a fairly luxurious apartment, standing before Small Snake, an older lady furiously glared in his direction. With her arms crossed, she spat. So you're saying that you want to take Ryan away for a couple of years? Scratching the side of his neck, Small Snake pitifully nodded his head. Yes. According to the leader's words, we're going to go on a trip. A trip? To where? That. Small Snake's mouth twitched. Wiping the sweat from his forehead, Small Snake silently cursed Ren with all of his heart. Damn it, Ren. Can't you at least give me more to work with? Despite having asked multiple times, Ren had still not told him about the location of the so-called trip. Because of this, he could only honestly respond by saying, to be honest, I don't know as well. You don't know? I don't know. TSK, I was so close to clearing this level. Whilst Small Snake was confronting Ryan's mother, standing next to him was Ryan, who was currently playing with the console in his hand, completely unbothered by Small Snake's predicament. Nudging Ryan with his elbow, Small Snake whispered in a pleading tone. Ryan, help me out here. Unfortunately for him, he was promptly ignored by Ryan, who continued to play his game. Useless. Small Snake cursed underneath his breath. So you're telling me that you're going to take Ryan away from me for a couple of years on some unknown trip that you don't know the location of?
Yeah.
Small Snake awkwardly nodded his head. What about the dangers? Is it dangerous? Small Snake did not reply. However, this was enough for Ryan's mom, who quickly grabbed him by the arm and dragged him behind her. Seeing that you can't answer me, I'll take that as a no, and I'll also say no. Ryan won't go. Ma'am, please listen, this trip is going to be extremely important in developing Ryan's ability. My answer is still no. Ryan's mother promptly cut Small Snake off. I'm not going to expose my 13-year-old ch. Mom. Tugging on the hem of her skirt, Ryan cut in. Lowering her head and staring at Ryan, who was looking at her, her face softened up a little. What is it, Ryan? Let me go on the trip. Huh? But Ryan, didn't you hear? This is going to be a dangerous trip. No matter how great it is, I can. Ryan's words caused his mom to be taken aback as she quickly tried to dissuade him, but staring directly into her eyes, Ryan reassured. Mom, I will be fine. How can you be so sure, Ryan? That's because our leader is there. Your leader? He's someone reliable. After having heard Ren's recount of how he survived the monolith, Ryan had faith in this leader of his. If he managed to survive such a place, there wouldn't be any problems for him to survive anywhere. Plus, there was Angelica, who, although was scary, was extremely reliable. Listening to Ryan's words, Ryan's mom tried to retort, but she was promptly cut off by him. But... Mom, I know what you want to say, but I want to go. Biting her lips and staring at Ryan, who was looking back at her, Ryan's mom struggled to speak. Although she never showed it, she knew just how smart Ryan was. Even though he always pretended to act childish in front of her, being his mom, Ryan couldn't fool her. She knew that Ryan was merely putting on a facade for her to seem like a normal child. She feigned ignorance to his behavior because she knew that he was doing it for her. And now, staring into Ryan's eyes, and seeing the conviction in them, she knew that he had made up his mind. Even though he was only 13, he was by far smarter than any other 13-year-old out there. She was sure Ryan didn't want to go there just out of impulse. As a mother, she should do anything within her power to support her son. Despite its dangers, if this trip truly did help pave the way for his future, she knew that she had to let him go. Eventually, alternating her gaze between Small Snake and Ryan, her eyes finally paused on Small Snake. After a while, she softly lowered her head and with a shaky voice, she asked. Please make sure Ryan stays safe. Please. 9 p.m. Quietly driving the car through the streets of Ashton City, I looked towards my right where a small girl quietly rested on the front passenger seat. A gentle smile appeared on my face as I looked at her. After picking Nola up from preschool, I brought her around the city to enjoy whatever she wanted. My treat. The result? Nola went overboard and ended up passing out due to the sugar overload. Just thinking about it made me chuckle. Accompanying Nola through the streets of Ashton City, I never felt so relaxed. Just watching her eat the sweets that I bought her brought joy to me, but alas, all good things must come to an end. It was now time for me to let her go. Stopping in front of a large apartment complex, I caressed Nola's cheek before trying to remove her seatbelt. Knock. Knock. Just as I was about to remove Nola's seatbelt, someone knocked on the window. Looking up, I saw my mother smiling warmly at me. Behind her was my father. Opening the door of the car, she asked. Well, how was your little trip? Putting my finger on my mouth, I pointed at Nola. Shh. She's sleeping. Sorry. Putting her hand on her mouth, my mother immediately apologized. Then, removing Nola's seatbelt, my mother gently took her in her arms. Hooking her small arms around my mother, Nola muttered in her sleep. Bwooter. Smiling at Nola, and brushing her hair to the side, my mother turned towards me and asked. Ren, are you not going to stay for the night? I'm sorry, but I can't. I promptly shook my head. Although every fiber within my body wanted to agree to their proposal, I knew that it was time for me to go. With the chip threatening to expose my location at any time, I knew that the more I stayed with them, the higher the chance of them getting in danger was. Even though Ryan could tell me in advance when the monolith was trying to connect with the chip inside of my head, I didn't want to take any risks. It was time for me to leave. I'll be going now. Staring gently at Nola in my mother's arms, I kissed her forehead. Then, hugging both of my parents, I turned around and headed for my car. Though short, the time I spent today was unforgettable. End of Volume 2, Part 5 of 5. Chapter 289, Brief Stop and Departure 1. Ever since leaving my parents, 2 days have passed. Late into the night, with a full moon hanging in the sky, I pressed onto the gas pedal of a large black 8-passenger SUV. Having made all the necessary preparations, and pretty much spending every single penny I had, it was now time for me to leave. Slowly the car sped into the night. As I was driving, turning my head, and looking at Ryan whose eyes were glued onto his tablet, I asked, "Ryan, is there a signal coming from my chip?" "No, nothing yet," Ryan replied. His eyes never left the tablet in his hands. "All right." Turning my attention back towards the road, I sighed in relief. I still had time. This was good. Good because I still had one thing to do before leaving the human domain, and that was recruit one last guy. Hein Kragenschott. Ironia City was seated on the western region of the human domain. The spacious large roads that led to and from it caused it to become a place one must pass through in order to head to Andromeda City, one of the 4 great cities. Also the place I needed to go in order to leave the human border. The position that it occupied was quite fortunate. If any incident occurred, with Andromeda City next to them, reinforcements could come at any time. That aside, Ironia City was also home to a few platinum-graded guilds, so the place was fairly safe. Woken up by me, Leopold yawned and stretched his arms. Where are we going now?" "Let's stop for breakfast," I suggested. Unfortunately, my suggestions were met with deadpan eyes as nobody apart from Leopold seemed even remotely interested in the idea of having breakfast. Taking a look outside of the window, Leopold asked, "You know any interesting places?" "Turn right in 100 m, after that turn left." Got just the right place." With a calm smile on my face, I steered the wheel of the car slightly and followed the GPS device's instructions. Not long after, pressing onto the brakes of the car, I stopped in front of an old shop with a large sign that said Turquoise Hall. This should be it. Stepping out of the car and covering my face with my hand to block the sunlight, I glanced at the old shop in the distance. Turning around, I asked, "Do you guys want to come in with me to eat breakfast, or are you guys gonna tour the city by yourselves?" "Tour!" Ryan excitedly shouted. "You're not hungry?" "No." Ryan shook his head. Raising my brow, I looked towards the others. "What about you guys?" No. No. I've suddenly lost my appetite." Ava and Leopold respectively shook their heads. "All right, suit yourselves." I shrugged my shoulders at their response. It seems like the aesthetics of the place caused the others to not want to have breakfast. Looking at Small Snake, I casually said, "You know what to do." Huh? As expected, he became flustered at my words. With a small smirk on my face, I elaborated. "Be the babysitter that you are." Small Snake was instantly taken aback. Taking out a stack of papers from his dimensional space, he waved them at me. "Wait, don't you need me to?" Snatching the papers from his hand, I waved my hand and shooed him off. "Just give me the contract and go with them." I'll take care of everything. Have fun with them. Originally I was supposed to have Small Snake come with me for the negotiations of Hein's contract, but seeing how tired Small Snake was, I decided to let him have a tour of the city. He deserved a little break. Squinting, Small Snake skeptically asked, "Can you really handle it?" "Yes. Now, I've already taken the contract, so go." "All right, if you say so." Smiling, I looked towards Leopold. "What about you? Since you're not having breakfast, gonna tour with them?"
Nah.
"I'm gonna go hit the pub, call me when you're done." Leopold shook his head before heading out. Watching Leopold leave, I looked at Ava. "Ava?" Alternating her gaze between Small Snake and me, Ava weakly pointed at him. I will tour with Ryan and Small Snake." Wow, never before did I feel so rejected. A bitter smile appeared on my face. Guess everyone detested the idea of having breakfast with me. Shrugging my shoulders, I looked towards the back of the car where a black cat rested. "All right, guess it's just me and you, Angelica." Without even looking at me, Angelica jumped out of the car and disappeared into the distance. A cold voice echoed inside of my mind. "I'll be back in 2 hours." Speechless, I closed the door of the car and headed for the shop. "Bunch of traitors," I muttered underneath my breath. "Welcome." Entering the building, the first person to greet me was an old man in a wheelchair. Behind him were 2 4-year-old children who were looking at me with curious eyes. "Good morning," I greeted back. Handing me a small menu, the old man pointed towards the back of the shop where different goods could be seen on display and asked, "Are you here to buy anything, or would you like to eat something?" "Breakfast, please." "All right." The old man nodded his head. With his hand on the joystick of the wheelchair, he soon brought me towards a small table where I sat down. Taking out a pen and a small piece of paper, he asked, "What would you like?" Staring at the menu in front of me, and pondering for a couple of seconds, I quickly skimmed through the menu before ordering. How about an omelette with ham and cheese?" "Omelette with ham and cheese? What about to drink?" "Orange juice, please." "Anything else?" "No, thank you." "Perfect." Turning around, the old man shouted towards the back of the shop. "Hein, someone is here. Quickly prepare an omelette with ham and cheese." "Father, what's going on?" Coming out of the back of the shop was a youth with curly brown hair and hazel eyes. He had a sturdy build that seemed to be extremely well developed, and he gave off a momentous aura. Cleaning his hands on the black apron on him, the youth walked towards his father. "What is going on, father?" Pointing at me, his father handed him a small piece of paper that had my order in it. "Hein, we have a customer. Here's the order."
Ah.
"A consumer. All right, I'll go straight to the kitchen." Finally noticing me, Hein quickly dashed towards the back of the kitchen where he started preparing my breakfast. Bidding
Goodbye
to me, Hein's father went towards the back of the shop to tend to his 2 4-year-old children. Omelette with ham and cheese, and orange juice. Before long, coming out from the kitchen, Hein arrived before me with the food that I ordered. "Thank you." Thanking him, I took out a fork and quickly dug onto the omelette before me. As soon as I took a bite of the omelette, I couldn't help but mutter out loud, "Delicious." "Thank you." Hein shyly responded by the side. Throwing him a glance, I pointed at the seat opposite to me. "Please have a seat." Huh? Taken aback, Hein became slightly flustered.
Ah.
"I'm sorry, it's just that you were the first customer in a while. Don't worry, I won't bite, just wanted to talk to you about something." Cutting him off again, I pointed at the seat in front of me. Looking into my eyes, Hein eventually nodded his head and pulled the chair back before sitting down. Okay. Good. As he sat down, he introduced himself. Nice to meet you. My name is Hein. Hein Kragenschott. I know. Taking a bit of the omelette, I nonchalantly nodded my head. You know? Hein's eyes instantly became sharp. A wisp of his aura instantly made its way towards me. Ignoring it, I took another bite of the omelette before I leisurely said. I know of a way to heal your father. As soon as I said those words, the atmosphere became quiet. Then, Hein suddenly stood up and smacked the table with both hands. What? Because the store was empty, no one was present to witness his sudden outburst. Well, no one apart from his father, who hurriedly came out from the back of the shop. Hein, is everything okay? Realizing his mistake, Hein lowered his head and reassured. Everything is okay, father, don't worry and go back. You sure?
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Hein once again reassured. All right, if you say so. Squinting his eyes, his father eventually relented and headed back to the back of the shop. Once he could no longer see his father's figure, Hein shot a glare towards my direction as he angrily spat. You're not lying, are you? This is not some sick joke that you are trying to pull on me because of my father's conditions? No. I'm not lying. I truly did know the cure for his father's condition. Although current human technology couldn't accomplish this. This didn't mean that other races couldn't. In fact, the elves had this miraculous elixir at their disposal that worked wonders. It was even better than the most expensive potion in the human domain, as it could heal injuries related to the head and spine. And surprise, surprise, I was soon going to make a trip there. What better opportunity to have him join than now? Glaring at me, Hein carefully asked. Why are you telling me this? Giving him an odd look, I replied in a matter-of-fact tone. Because I want to recruit you. Why else? 'Cause I felt sorry for him? Though I did feel a little sorry for him, it was only a little. What I wanted was for him to join my group. Nothing else really mattered to me. Recruit me? Hein cautiously asked. I want you. Couldn't leave without my meat shield, could I? At my response, a bitter smile appeared on Hein's face as he sighed. He then stood up.
Ha!
So you're one of them. His words made me tilt my head in confusion. One of them?
Yeah.
One of those bastards from the big guilds. Throwing me a disgusted look, Hein pointed at me and spat. You think you were the first one to try this method? At the end of the day, all you guys do is tell me how you can save my father, but in the end, right before I agree to join you, you're suddenly going to impose on me another detail in the contract that will say that my father's treatment will only begin once the technology is advanced enough. Before then, nothing will happen. I see. Listening to Hein's words, I nodded my head in understanding. In short, Hein had been repeatedly promised things that were not guaranteed. His anger was understandable. Yes, and I'm honestly sick of it. So I'm going to say it now, I will end. How about this, will this be enough? Cutting him off, right before Hein was about to leave, taking out a sheet of paper from my dimensional space, I slapped it on the desk. I'm sure you'll know if I'm lying or not when you read this. Furrowing his brows, Hein looked at the desk. Staring at the paper, Hein was about to once again reject when suddenly he felt small threads of mana lingering on the sheet of paper. What are you, huh? Is that a mana contract? Indeed. Now read, and tell me if the conditions aren't fair. Taking one last bite of the omelette, I passed the contract to Hein, who, with a skeptical look on his face, took the paper and slowly started reading it. As he read through it, I couldn't help but take amusement in his gradual change of expression as a look of disbelief soon appeared on his face. Finally, after reading through the contract for the 7th time, lifting his head, he asked, "Is this true?" Having reread the contract and seeing no hidden agendas or terms in it, Hein was in total disbelief. Nonchalantly drinking my orange juice, I asked, "So? What do you think? This is a mana contract, right?" Hein asked as he flipped the paper around to make sure it wasn't a fake contract. Rolling my eyes, I took out a pen and placed it on the table. "Yup, once you sign it, we're both bound to it. If I fail to hold my end of the deal, I will die. Simple as that." Putting the half-finished orange juice on the table, I looked at Hein straight in the eyes. "I'm betting my life on you. Is this enough to prove my sincerity?" Gulp. With an audible gulp, Hein once again looked through the contract. After an unknown period of time, taking a deep breath, he closed his eyes and asked, "You promised a couple of million in advanced payment as soon as I sign it. Will that be given to me directly or do I have to wait?" Pointing at the contract, I replied, "As stated, you will receive the payment immediately. As a sign of goodwill, the contractee will get a down payment of 5 million that will be paid upon the completion of the contract." Ah. Biting the lower end of the lip, Hein stopped speaking and fell into deep contemplation. Staring at him from the opposite side, I calmly drank my orange juice and waited for his decision. Fortunately, I didn't have to wait long. Lifting his head and staring at me in the eyes, with hope in his eyes, he asked, "Do you really have a way to cure my dad?" Rolling my eyes, I rebutted, "You think I would put my life on the line if I didn't? If I wasn't confident, I would have never proposed it. Since I was confident, it meant that I could do it." Hoo. Taking a deep breath, Hein took the pen that was on the table. Staring at me in the eyes for a couple of seconds, he swiftly signed the paper. "All right, you've got a deal. Good choice." Plaque. Smacking the now empty glass of juice on the table, I smiled and shook Hein's hand. Like that, a meat shield was added to my party. Chapter 290, Brief Stop, and Departure, 2. Once Hein signed the contract, everything was smooth sailing. Briefing him about the upcoming trip and how it was going to be important in his mission to cure his father, Hein promptly agreed to join me on the trip. "All right, let me send you the money. I'll let you handle the rest with your family." MHM. Transferring 5 million directly to Hein's account, I stood up and left the shop. Hein would be leaving on a long trip with me and the others. I didn't want to ruin his farewell with his father and siblings. Fortunately, with the 5 million I had given him, they should be able to live very comfortably for the next few years. This was probably why he wasn't so against the idea of coming with me once I explained to him the purpose of the trip. What time is it?" Standing underneath the sunlight, turning my wrist slightly, I checked the time. 9:30 a.m. So almost 2 hours have already passed. From what I recall, we arrived here by 8 in the morning. This meant that 1.5 hours had already passed since I talked to Hein. Taking out my phone, I texted the others. "Guys, it's time to come back." Now that I had dealt with Hein's recruitment, it was now time to leave. Walking back to the SUV, leaning on my seat, I got some shut-eye. Having driven throughout the whole night, I needed to rest a little. "We're back." Waking me up from my nap was the sound of Ryan's high-pitched voice. Opening the door of the car, he quickly hopped in. Following him were Ava and Small Snake. Leopold followed suit not long after. Staring towards the back of the car, I looked left and right before asking, Looks like everyone is here. Where is Angelica? She's there. Small Snake pointed towards the back seat. Leaning forward a bit, I finally saw Angelica resting in the back of the car. Okay, perfect, now all we have to do is wait for Hein. Right as my words faded, the door of the shop in the distance opened and Hein came out. Looking closely, I could see that the side of his eyes was red, indicating to me that he had been crying. Lowering the window, I asked, "Are you done saying your goodbyes?" "MHM." Lifting his head up, Hein softly nodded his head. Opening the back door of the car, I gestured for him to get in. "Great, get in." Upon entering the car, pointing at Hein, I introduced him to the others. "Guys, this is Hein, our new recruit." "Hello." Hein greeted the others who greeted him back. Smiling, I pointed at the others and briefly introduced them to him. "Hein, these are the other members. This here is Small Snake. If you want to know anything, ask this guy and he'll probably know. This over here is Ava, she's a monster ta." As I introduced Hein to the other members, before long, a weird look appeared on his face. Blinking a couple of times and alternating my gaze between him and the others, I came to a sudden realization. Patting him on the shoulder, I let out a small laugh. Don't be too quick to judge. Now that I thought about it, everyone looked pretty unreliable. Small Snake was lanky, Leopold looked like a drunkard, Ava looked extremely shy and Ryan was a child. Skipping Angelica who was a demon, and Silic who I had no idea about what he was doing, the group really looked unreliable. Although they don't look reliable, don't look down on them. Everyone here is much scarier than you think. Is that so? Hein forced a smile. Completely unconvinced by my words. Shaking my head and patting him on the shoulder, I urged for him to take a seat. "Well, you don't have to believe me now, you'll know when the time is right. Now have a seat, we'll be leaving now." There was no need for me to convince him about the strength of the others. In due time he'll realize that he was sitting with a bunch of monsters. "Okay." Hein hesitantly nodded his head before taking a seat. Once he sat down, moving towards the front of the car and fastening my seat belt, I pressed on the gas pedal and drove towards my next destination. Dramada City. TK. Rain poured down from the sky. Sitting on a bench, Kevin quietly sat next to a beautiful girl with short auburn hair who currently had an extremely dark look on her face. For the next 5 minutes, neither one of them spoke as the only sound that could be heard was from the rain hitting the asphalt ground. This continued for a little bit more time, until finally, unable to bear with it anymore, Emma suddenly stood up and swore. "Fuck." Glaring into the distance, Emma continued to swear. Seemingly wanting to vent out her frustrations. "How fucking dare you do this to me, you piece of scum? Is this how you repay my father for not kicking you out of the household? How dare you? How dare you? How dare you?" Still sitting on the bench, Kevin took a deep breath and quietly listened to Emma's hysteric sounds. He had a brief idea of what was going on. In the past, he didn't know much about what was going on with Emma as she never talked about her personal life, but now, things were different. With their relationship closer than ever, she revealed everything to him. From how her uncle was suppressing her, to all the schemes he was pulling in the dark. It had gotten to the point where he was trying to get her to drop out of the lock. Something that completely enraged her. Piece of scum. Watching Emma vent all of her frustrations towards the rain, unable to bear it anymore, Kevin finally approached her. "Emma, do you have any idea of where your father could be?" Hearing Kevin's voice, Emma turned around. "What are you talking about? Isn't all of this happening because your father isn't here?"
Yeah.
"So, if he came back, the problem would be solved, no? As long as her dad come back, her uncle would stand no chance. There was a clear difference in power and competency after all. Do you have any way to contact him? No. Emma dejectedly shook her head. According to him, the mission is top secret, and so he can't come into contact with me at the moment. Top secret? Secret enough to not even contact his own daughter for months?
Yeah.
Lifting her head and staring at the rain that was falling from the sky, Emma weakly muttered. Kevin. I don't know what to do. Staring at Emma's fragile figure in the distance, Kevin bit his lips as he suddenly felt a surge of anger well up from deep inside of him. Walking up to her, he reassured her. Don't worry, I'll help you. The journey to Andromeda City was quite smooth. Within an hour's drive from Ironia City, I could already see the outline of the city in the distance. Leaning towards the window, Ryan cried out in excitement.
What?
That's huge. It sure is. I softly said as I stared into the distance. Before long, a massive city appeared in the distance. Around the city was a humongous wall, where stationed every few kilometers at the top of the wall was a beacon that shot a light ray towards the sky that joined with different light rays that came from the different beacons stationed on the top of the walls. As the light rays joined together, a massive barrier that enveloped the whole city was formed. Damn. Staring at the barrier that was enveloping the city, I couldn't help but be amazed. The difference between Ashton City and Andromeda City was the fact that Andromeda City directly bordered the Elven and Demon domains. As such, they had no choice but to erect massive walls and invest tons of money on the barrier that was currently enveloping the whole city. Though I wasn't sure, the cost of maintaining the barrier around the city was astronomical, and if not for the constant threat of the demons, they would have long disposed of it. Snapping me out of my thoughts, Leopold asked. Hey, Ren, aren't we going to take a quick break here? Looking back, I shook my head. No, sorry, maybe next time. A pity, I really wanted to check the places around here. Leopold muttered in disappointment as he leaned back on his seat. Smiling, I drove the car towards the other side of the city. With the chip in my head possibly activating at any time, I didn't want to risk the chance of meeting trouble this early on the journey. I had already wasted too much time. Any day now and a massive manhunt for my head would start. In fact, the manhunt had probably already started, but with the tracking device not working, and my face now healed, their search was fruitless. But I knew that it was only a matter of time before all hell would break loose. Steering the wheel of the car, I didn't enter the city. That was because my priority right now was to leave the place, and not waste any time in the city. Soon, nearing the walls of the city and arriving before a massive gate that led towards the outsides of the city, I was somewhat stunned to see tens of fully armed soldiers at the city's entrance. They stood at the two sides of the city wall and their sharp gazes continued to sweep across the passers-by coming and going. Once again steering the wheel of the van, I patiently waited for my turn. Fortunately, I didn't have to wait for long as within a couple of minutes, a soldier appeared by the side of the window. Lowering my window, the soldier sternly asked. Please state why you want to leave the city. Here. Flashing a black card that signified that I was a part of the mercenary group, I explained. I'm here to bring my members to hunt beasts and look for cores. Cores? MHM, mostly training. Cores, not so sure, but hey. What if, right? It wasn't a rare occurrence for mercenaries to leave the human domain and hunt for beasts. Just like monsters, they had cores and could be sold for hefty prices. Not only that, but their bones and skin were also sought after. I see, how many people? Including me, 6. That is if you include a cat, and that would be 7. No, cats don't count. All right, 6 people, that would be 60,000 U. Sure, no problem. Taking out my phone, I quickly transferred 60,000 U to the guard. Once the money was fully transferred and the guard saw it, stepping to the side, the guard motioned for me to go. All right, everything checks out. You may leave. Have a safe trip. Thank you. Thanking the guard, I quickly drove the car forward. As I drove forward, Dromeda City soon disappeared from the view, and what replaced it was thick lush trees. With the sound of the engine roaring, I drove deep into the primitive forest. The SUV's flexible suspension was excellent, but the ground of the primitive forest was too cragged. There weren't many roads and the ground was covered in decaying tree branches, leaves, and massive rocks. Soon, it became apparent to me that the road was no longer drivable. At the speed that we were going, walking would have been faster. As such, pressing onto the brakes and twisting the keys out of the socket of the car, I opened the door of the SUV and got out. All right, that's as far as we can go. Hey, Ren, why are we stopping? Small Snake asked, surprised by my actions. Glancing at Small Snake, I stretched my arms and lazily replied. That's because from now on we're going to be walking. Walking? Ryan cringed. Evidently against the prospect of having to walk. Rolling my eyes and ignoring him, I pointed forward and asked. Well,
Yeah.
do you guys see a road anywhere? Turning their heads and finally seeing the state of the road, everyone's face turned grim. Wait, are you telling us that we're going to have to walk all the way towards the destination on foot? Small Snake darkly asked. Well, not really. A part of it, yes. Our current destination was the Dwarven Domain, which was located a bit behind the Elven Domain. Fortunately, we didn't have to cross the Elven Domain to reach it, but the road that led to it was quite far, and the terrain was tough. Still, that didn't mean that the whole trip was going to be on foot. During flat grounds, using the SUV wouldn't be a problem, but when the road was as tough as it was now, the only option was for us to go on foot. Small Snake also seemed to have realized this as he let out a pained groan.
Ugh.
Seriously, why did the road have to be like this? Patting Small Snake on the shoulder, I reassured. Don't worry. This is good for us. How is this good? Can't you tell? This is a great opportunity for us to train. Train? MHM. Why else do you think I brought you here? To have fun? Excluding the previous reasons as to why I chose to go on foot, another major deciding factor was because this was the perfect place to train. With dangerous beasts lurking everywhere, this was the perfect chance to have the members train together and increase their strengths as well as group synergy. At the moment, apart from a few, everyone in the group had little to no experience in real combat. Me included. Although I had just crawled my way up from hell, that experience made me realize that I lacked a lot. But this was the best chance to fix those problems. Rustle. Suddenly, a rustling sound came from the nearby bushes, startling everyone present. Following the rustling sound, a black silhouette suddenly jumped out of nowhere. Turning my head and staring at the silhouette that had just appeared, a smile appeared on my face. Well, on the topic of training, we've got the perfect training partner. Chapter 291, Journey 1. Appearing from out of the bushes was a huge red-furred creature that had a pair of bloody red eyes that carried a strange glint of green light and a large mouth where two enormous fangs drooped down. A terrifying bloodthirsty aura spread out of the creature's body, enveloping the surroundings. Standing on its 4 feet, the creature's red eyes glared towards our direction with saliva dripping down from its mouth. It's a red-furred two-husked wolf, looks like we've stepped on its territory. A red-furred two-husked wolf. An ranked mutated creature that was commonly found in these areas. Glancing at my watch and staring at the beast encyclopedia, I got a brief overview of the beast. To summarize what it said, the wolf in front of me mainly relied on its sharp claws rather than fangs to attack. Once I got a better understanding of the beast in front of me, glancing towards my left, I ordered. Ava, Hein, get ready. The others, get behind me. Wait, what? Me? Flustered looks appeared on the mentioned people's faces. With a calm face, I pushed Hein towards the wolf in the distance. Go, do your thing and act like a meat shield. Wait, dash. Clank. Before Hein could finish speaking, the wolf had already lunged in his direction. Fortunately, Hein was quick to react as a shield quickly materialized in front of him. Stomping onto the ground, he narrowly deflected the creature's sharp claws. KHHH. With a groan, he took 2 steps back. What was that about? He screamed, looking at me. Shrugging my shoulders, I pointed at the wolf. Stop looking at me, your opponent is right in front of you. Clank. Right as my words faded, the giant wolf ruthlessly clawed Hein's shield. A dull metallic sound rang out as Hein let out another pained groan. Quack. To Hein's misfortune, the wolf did not give him any time to breathe as it once again lunged in his direction. Clank. Clank. Under the barrage of attacks, Hein could somehow keep his footing, however, slowly but surely, he was starting to get pushed back. Although both Hein and the wolf were of the same rank because Hein was still inexperienced in real combat, he was making many mistakes that he normally wouldn't have done. This became more apparent as time passed as not before long, Hein's back touched the trunk of a tree.
Ah!
It was then that suddenly Hein screamed out loud. Staring at the scene from afar, my face cringed a little. That was because the wolf's attack had finally landed on Hein's body, and the result was a deep cut on his right arm. Like a fountain, blood spurted out from his arm, and Hein's face visibly paled. It must have cut an artery. The injury was quite serious from how blood was splurting from out of his arm. Even then, I didn't move. Instead, turning towards my left and staring at Ava, I raised my brow. Ava, aren't you going to help him? But, how? Ava weakly responded. That's for you to figure out. If I told them the answer, how would they grow? So the whole purpose of this training session was for the growth of the others. I wasn't here to babysit them. This was especially true for Ava, who quickly needed to grow a backbone. Unfortunately, she was simply too shy. You better hurry, Hein's health is deteriorating. Clang. Whack. Right as my words faded, a loud metallic sound rang out and Hein was forced to take a knee to the ground. Below him, a small blood pool was starting to form.
Oh no.
Seeing how dire the situation was, Ava quickly closed her eyes. Pressing her arms together in a praying manner, she started chanting some sort of weird spell as a yellow glow enveloped her body, causing her clothes to flutter slightly. Chirp. Chirp. Before long a chirping sound rang out and a small bird appeared in front of her. Once the bird appeared, pointing towards the wolf in the distance, Ava quickly ordered. Quick, Newton, help him. Twit. Circling in the air, Newton chirped. Then, following her command, Newton, Ava's contracted beast, rose in the air. Then, staring at the vicious red beast attacking Hein, folding its wings together, it quickly dove down from the sky. Shooting down from the sky at extreme speeds, Newton directly aimed for the wolf's eyes. Since the wolf was busy trying to kill Hein, it could not notice the small bird heading down from the sky. This was probably the biggest mistake of its life as Newton soon appeared right in front of its left eye. Subsequently, Hyuk! Blood splattered everywhere, and an enraged howl reverberated across the surroundings as the wolf flayed its body wildly, looking around for the culprit of its injury. It didn't take long for it to spot Newton, who was smugly looking at it from the air. Ooh-hoo. Staring at the arrogant bird from below, the wolf howled towards the sky. Its blood-red eyes flickering coldly. Staring at the scene from afar, turning my head and looking at Leopold, Elle softly muttered. Leopold, help them if they are in trouble. You go it, boss. Leopold replied as he lit up a cigarette. An amused look appeared on his face as he looked at Ava and Hein trying their best to fight the wolf. Puff. Once he lit up the cigarette, taking a quick puff, he muttered. If I have to be honest, boss, there's a lot of things that they need to work on. But, unfortunately, they are more of a liability than actual companions as of right now. They are making too many obvious mistakes.
Yeah.
Listening to Leopold's evaluation from the side, I was forced to nod my head. What he said was correct. Unfortunately, Ava and Hein were still far too inexperienced to be called proper companions. As of right now, they were a liability. Fortunately, I was planning on changing this right now. This fight was the start of their change. To make matters better, I wasn't worried about teaching them the wrong thing with Leopold next to me. Out of all the people present, Leopold was the person that had the most experience. Not only that, but he was also very good at coaching and instructing, as he had been a part of a mercenary guild for over a decade. Having worked there for such a long time, he had ample experience and a great eye for things. Ooh-hoo. Disrupting me out of my thoughts was the wolf's desperate howl. Oh.
Shh.
*T. Next to me, Leopold's face suddenly changed dramatically as he quickly flicked the cigarette away. What's wrong? I asked. Stomping onto the cigarette, Leopold urgently said. The wolf just called for its pack. Soon we're going to be surrounded by a bunch of wolves. We should quickly get out of here. How strong do you think they are? Taking out a large broadsword from his dimensional space, Leopold tied his long hair back. Red two-husked wolf can only range between to rank, but that's not the problem. If 30 of them come at us at the same time, things would get troublesome. 30 and ranks. Furrowing my brows, I looked into the distance and pondered for a couple of seconds. Then, shaking my head, I put my hand on top of his sword. Put that away, we won't need it. Wait, but it's dangerous. Patting Leopold in the shoulder, I reassured him that everything would be fine. Don't worry, I should still be able to handle that much. Not that I wanted to sound arrogant or anything, but with me being on the verge of breaking through to 30 ranks were nothing to me. In general, it was hard to determine someone's strength based on just rank. This was because things such as skills, experience, artifacts, and arts could help someone breach the difference in ranks. However, if we exclude those, a rank difference signified a difference in the strength of about 10 to 20 individuals of the lower rank. In short, an rank could handle up to at most 10 to 20 ranks at the same time. Although this would become exponentially greater as the ranks increased, with the difference between ranks and ranks being bigger, in general, this was what the difference in ranks amounted to. At least till rank. As such, with me being pretty much almost 2 ranks higher than the beasts that were to come, I wasn't worried about the incoming wolves. Staring at Hein and Ava who were slightly panicking, I shouted. Hurry up you two. A bunch of hungry wolves will be coming for you soon. If you don't want to end up being their dinner, step up your game. My words seemed to have affected them as the auras on the bodies of the two quickly shot up. Hua! Hein, who stomped on the ground with his foot, was the first one to move. Once he did that, the mana within his body soared up once more. The surge of mana was silent, but it was a lot thicker compared to before. The shield in front of him became undoubtedly more vital as a brown glow slowly enveloped it. Once the brown glow enveloped the shield's weight swiftly rose. Ooh-hoo! As Hein gathered his strength, the wolf did not stand idle. Howling towards the sky, the wolf's figure disappeared from its spot. Reappearing in front of Hein, the wolf's claws quickly slashed towards Hein's shield. Clang! A dull sound resonated over the area. Immediately after, a small gust of wind swept out in a circular shape, whistling like a storm, with Hein and the wolf being the focal point. With the veins on his forehead bulging, Hein looked at Ava and shouted. "KHHH, Ava now! Newton!" Without needing to be told what to do, Ava again pointed at the wolf in the distance. Twit! Just like before, Newton did a circle in the air before closing its wings and dashing towards the wolf on the ground. This time, Newton aimed for the other eye of the wolf. Newton soon appeared right in front of the wolf's eye like a silver bullet. Ooh-hoo! A desperate howl resounded across the area as the wolf wept in pain. Blood dripped down from both of his eyes. It had now been completely blinded. All right, the fight is pretty much over. Taking out my sword from my dimensional space, I let out a yawn and walked towards Hein and Ava. With Ava's contracted beast having taken out both of the wolf's eyes, I no longer needed to spectate the fight. Thud! Sure enough, by the time I arrived next to them, the wolf slumped on the ground, dead.
Ha! Ha!
Slumping on the ground, Hein forcefully swallowed a few mouthfuls of oxygen. His curly brown hair was now damp with sweat, and his expression was pale. To make matters worse, his right arm, which was dripping with blood, was now spasming. Looking at the state Hein was in, tapping onto my bracelet, I tossed him a potion. Here, drink this. Thanks. Catching the potion, Hein quickly downed it and thanked me. His reaction caused me to raise my brow as I couldn't help but ask. Oh. You not mad about what I've done? I'm too tired for that. Hein bitterly said as he leaned back on the trunk of a tree. His response made me involuntarily smile. All right, drink the potion for now. Once you're healed up, talk to Leopold, he'll brief you on the things you need to work on. Ava too. Ren. Cutting me off was Ryan. Turning my head and seeing how severe Ryan's face was, the smile on my face faded. Pursing my lips, I asked. Has the chip connected? Staring at the tablet in his hand, Ryan's face became complicated. Eventually, he nodded his head. Yes.
Ha!
Closing my eyes, I exhaled. Although I knew that this was coming, I hoped they would have given me more time. Unfortunately, my prayer was not answered. Things were soon going to become troublesome. Rumble. Disrupting me out of my thoughts, I felt a slight tremble coming from the ground. Following this, multiple howls echoed in the distance as over 30 red bloodthirsty wolves soon appeared in front of my vision. Coming out from the side of the trees and bushes, the wolves menacingly stared at everyone present. Ooh-hoo! 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 Looking back at the 30 wolves in the distance, Hein and Ava's faces vividly paled. Then, their bodies started to tremble. Their reaction was understandable, though. It took them everything they had to get rid of one wolf. Now that there were 20 of them, they were beyond scared. Get back! Stepping forward and coldly staring at the wolves in the distance, I placed my hand on the sheath of my sword. Hold on, Ren. You can't possibly defeat that many wolves. Small Snake cried out from behind. Ignoring Small Snake, I slowly walked towards the wolves. At the moment, my mind was extremely calm. Somehow, the prospect of these wolves ever putting me in danger never crossed my mind. In fact, for some odd reason that I couldn't explain, all my mind thought at the moment was about how to kill these wolves. It was as though a switch had been flipped, and my emotions suddenly calmed down. Similar to when I was under monarch indifference, however, contrary to that, this time, I had full control of my body. Boo-hoo. Taking one more step towards the wolves, they all simultaneously howled. Then, the mana in the air surged, and they all growled at me. Following this, over 10 wolves suddenly lunged at me. Calmly staring at the horde of wolves that had suddenly appeared before me, I placed my hand on the sheath of the sword. Click! The second movement of the keiki-style, horizon-splitting slash. A subtle clicking sound rang out, and the world became dyed in white. Thud. 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 What came after the light was the sound of bodies repeatedly dropping onto the ground. Apathetically staring at the wolves on the ground, I looked back towards the others, who were all looking at me with shocked expressions. Ignoring it, I softly said, "Let's get going. We've got a lot of work to do." Chapter 292, Journey 2. There's nothing here. Small Snake shouted as he stabbed the head of one of the wolves on the ground. I've also got nothing. Nothing here too. Disappointment flashed Ava and Hein's faces as they also found nothing on the corpses of the wolves. Nothing on my side as well. Leopold also added. Looking at them from a distance, sitting on a rock and leaning forward, I fell in thought. With over 30 wolves dying at my hands, everyone was now trying to see if they could find a core. The process was relatively slow and tedious, however, the rewards more than made up for it as each core was precious. Unfortunately, Lady Luck was not on our side as no one found anything. This was a given, though. The chances of finding a core were the same as winning the lottery. Minuscule. Wham. When I struggled to hold my yawn back, someone sat down next to me and tapped on my shoulder. What do we do now? Without the need to look back, I could tell who it was by his voice. It was Small Snake. Still sitting on the rock, I turned my head and looked up at Small Snake. His expression was severe, and with his hand on his chin, he had a pensive look on his face. If the chip has indeed started tracking our moves, we should probably not waste time here. Small Snake suddenly turned his head and looked at me. I think we should stop wasting time over here, and we should get going. According to my estimates, if they send someone to track you, within a week or month, they'll soon catch up to us. Listening to Small Snake and patting my pants, I silently stood up. Scratching the side of my neck and staring towards the direction of where Dromeda City was, my brows furrowed tightly. You're not necessarily wrong. Yes, that's why I'm suggesting for us to immediately go right now. The more distance we cover, the harder it is for them to find us. Closing my eyes slightly, for the next few seconds, I didn't speak. Then, opening my mouth, I said, "We proceed at our own pace." What? His eyes widened. Standing up, he walked to me. Did you hear what I just said? I heard what you said loud and clear. Then why did you say that we should go at our own pace?
Ha!
Without answering Small Snake, I brushed my hair to the side and let out a troubled sigh. What Small Snake said wasn't necessarily wrong. Now that the tracking device was on, the monolith and possibly even the Union would start hunting me. On a good note, we weren't in the human domain, which made it harder for them to track me down directly. Even then, it would only delay their search by at most a couple of weeks to a couple of months. Still. Putting my sword back into my dimensional space, I turned my head and looked towards the distance. We're going to continue going at our own pace. My current goal was to travel to the Dwarven domain. The road was a treacherous one. One that was riddled with dangers. Not only did I have to watch out for dangerous beasts, but I also had to watch out for demons. Although not exactly close, the demon domain was not that far. Approaching the situation prudently was the best way to go about things. Plus. Squinting my eyes, I muttered. Why should we be the hunted when we can just as well be the hunters? Huh. So what if they could track my location? Who said that they were supposed to be the only ones hunting? At the same time, Ashton City. By the time Amanda had completed her day's work, the sky was already beginning to darken. Sitting inside of a black car that was quietly driving through the busy streets of Ashton City, Amanda calmly looked at the ever-changing scenery outside of the window. Oh. Blinking a couple of times, Amanda found that her eyelids were becoming heavier with each passing second. She was tired. Having spent most of the day working and working out, Amanda was utterly exhausted. Quietly driving the car for 10 minutes, her assistant, Maxwell, opened his mouth and reminded her. "Young miss, we're almost there." Amanda faintly nodded. Pulling onto her right cheek, Amanda tried to wake herself up. Right now, she couldn't afford to look tired. Turning her head and looking at Maxwell, Amanda asked. "How long till we get there?" "We're already here." Maxwell replied with a smile. Once his words faded, the car soon stopped in front of a familiar building that Amanda had seen multiple times before. Getting out of the car's driver's seat, Maxwell moved towards Amanda's side and suavely opened the door for her. "Yug miss." "Thank you." Thanking Maxwell, Amanda got out of the car. Wearing a cyan-colored blouse that was neatly tucked in between her skinny dark pants, Amanda looked stunning. Holding onto a small black handbag in her right hand, Amanda walked towards the building in the distance. Like in the past, wherever she walked, she attracted the gazes of the nearby people. Used to this, she promptly ignored the stares and walked towards the building entrance where a relatively older lady was waiting. She was the care lady. "Good evening," Amanda greeted. Spotting a familiar figure, the care lady gently laughed.
Ah.
"Amanda. It's you today." Amanda smiled at the care lady. Being a frequent visitor, Amanda got along with her quite well. They were both comfortable making small talk with each other at this point. "I'll bring you to Nola." The care lady soon walked into the building, exchanging subtle pleasantries with Amanda. "I haven't seen you last week." "Busy with work?" "Yes. I've only managed to fit a bit of free time today." "How wonderful. Nola will be quite excited to see you." Whenever Amanda visited Nola, she would instantly brighten up and throw herself in her arms. Such scene had become a common occurrence at the preschool. Especially since the scene of the two ladies together looked as though they came straight out of a painting. Still, do try to look after yourself. Although I don't know your exact age, you don't look older than 20. Working so much at your age is not good. "I hope so." A tired smile appeared on Amanda's face. If possible, she also wanted to work less. However, Amanda couldn't afford to take it easy with her responsibilities increasing each week. Rumors about her father's absence have slowly started circulating the world. Fortunately, she was able to keep those rumors in check, but she knew that she didn't have much time left at her disposal. As such, she was forced to push herself even harder than ever before. This was also why she couldn't pick up Nola last week. She felt guilty about this, hence why she cleared up her schedule today and decided to surprise her by showing up today. "We're here." Walking through the corridors of the building, the care lady and Amanda soon arrived before a particular classroom where a young girl with glossy black hair and deep blue eyes was patiently waiting outside. Fiddling with her fingers at the classroom entrance and wearing a white and blue one-piece dress, the young girl looked extremely cute. "Nola, someone is here for you." Raising her little head, the moment Nola spotted Amanda, her complexion instantly became brighter as she ran up to her and called out. "Sister." "Nola." Bending down, Amanda extended her hands. Soon Nola jumped into her arms and hooked her arms around her neck. Sister. Happy to see me, Nola? Hugging Nola back, Amanda lifted her head and looked at the care lady. How has Nola been doing? Looking at the two with a smile, the care lady responded. Good actually, ever since that gentleman came to pick her up last time, she has been a lot more cheerful. Gentleman? Amanda titled her head.
Ah.
Yes. He came to pick Nola up not too long ago. On the day that you were busy. Originally Amanda was supposed to pick Nola up on that day, but she had to cancel a week prior due to an emergency board meeting. I have to say, ever since that gentleman came, Nola seemed to have become a lot more cheerful. Is that so? Yes. The care lady replied. Hesitating, Amanda asked. Her voice filled with curiosity. Just who could have made Nola so much more cheerful? If I may ask, how did he look like? The gentleman? Yes. Well, he looked to be in his 40s or something? He seemed to be someone who worked for Nola's parents. So I'm guessing he must be an employee? I'm not sure, though. I see. Listening to the care lady's words, the edges of Amanda's lips curled upward. Although she had no idea who the individual was, as long as Nola was happy, so didn't care who he was. Turning her attention back to Nola, who was in her arms, Amanda patted her head. Come, it's time to go back. Thank you for today, I will see you next week. Standing up and giving a slight nod to the care lady, Amanda took Nola by the hand and brought her back to her car under everyone's stare. Once they exited the building, Maxwell could be seen waiting in front of the car. Upon spotting Amanda and Nola, he opened the passenger's side door and greeted the two ladies. Young miss, little Nola. Hello. Isn't this our cute little Nola? Nola waved her little hand at Maxwell, who gently smiled in response and tapped on her nose, resulting in a small giggle escaping from the little girl's mouth. Nola reminded Maxwell of his daughter a lot. She was about the same age as his daughter, and whenever he saw her, he couldn't help but want to tease her a little bit. Clank! Once Amanda and Nola entered the car, Maxwell followed suit. Then, pressing on the gas pedal with his toes, the vehicle soon picked up speed and entered the busy streets of Ashton City. As they were driving, Amanda turned her head and looked at Nola, who was sitting next to her. How was your day? Good. Nola cheerfully responded. Did something good happen, Nola? At first, she didn't believe in the care lady's words, but seeing how cheerful Nola was, Amanda became curious. Just what made her so happy? Care to share with me why you are so happy? I met Big Blotter. Nola excitedly shouted with a cute smile appearing on her face. However, Amanda did not find Nola's smile cute at all. Once her words faded, silence descended as Amanda's face paled slightly. Staring at Nola, Amanda's voice shook slightly. Why you met your big brother? A worried look appeared on Amanda's face. Was Nola still unable to come to terms with the fact that Ren had died? Did it reach the point where she started imagining him? The more she thought about it, the more her face became worried. What did you do with your brother? Repeatedly nodding her head, Nola exaggeratedly waved her hands in the air. He bring me to eat candy and ice cream. Delicious. And then he also bring me to the park where play with. Listening to Nola's words, Amanda's lips trembled from time to time. Is that so? Was it fun? Putting on a brave smile, Amanda continued to show interest in Nola's words. But, unfortunately, she could not muster the courage to tell her that Ren had died. Despite her attempts, the words that she wanted to say remained stuck inside her mouth. It was then that she realized. She, too, had still not come to terms with his death. This was why the more Nola spoke, the stronger the pain in her heart became. Super fun. When was this? Amanda asked. Raising her small hand, a troubled frown appeared on Nola's face. 1, 2, 3, 4. Opening the palm of her hand, she slowly tapped on each finger and started to count. Finally, once she paused on her fourth finger, lifting her head she said. 4 days ago. 4 days ago? Wasn't this on the same day that I was supposed to pick Nola up? Amanda wondered as the confusion in her mind grew. Was Nola's situation perhaps due to her not showing up 4 days ago? If so, staring at Nola who was still happily counting with her fingers, Amanda's face became troubled. Slowly, guilt crept up in her heart. Next chap in an hour. Chapter 293, Journey 3. Monolith Headquarters, location unknown. After the explosion that took place not too long ago, the reconstruction of the headquarters had already begun. Though the damage the headquarters had taken were significant, the central infrastructure remained intact. As such, it was estimated that the building would be fixed back to normal within a couple of months. On the northern side of the infrastructure, an ominous and gloomy atmosphere spread across a particular room in an area that had been unaffected by the explosion. Looks like everyone's here. A cold, eerie voice echoed inside the room as an old man with a long gray beard and gray eyes apathetically looked at 5 individuals standing opposite him. Observing them, the old man could vividly see a tangible aura spread out from their bodies as each of them stood with their backs straight. Lifting his finger, the elder, Mo Jinhao, looked towards a particular individual standing in the middle of the group and pointed at him. Opening his mouth, his cold voice once rang out inside the room. Xavier, is this the group that you want to bring to the hunt? Yes, Vice Leader. Xavier softly responded as he stepped up. His expression was constantly changing. However, what didn't change was his glaring eyes filled with killing intent and the small smile that resembled that of a serpent. Everyone here seems to be quite well trained. 1 rank, 2 ranks and 1 rank. That is correct, Vice Leader. They're my personal unit, and I've decided to bring them with me for the hunt. I want them to gain some experience. Not bad. Mo Jinhao nodded in appreciation. This was the current force they were prepared to send to catch 876. After getting the tracking system functioning again, much to their surprise, they found out that 876 had long left the human domain. This was a bit of a problem since the direction where 876 was going directly bordered the elven domain. With them being extremely sensitive to the mana in the air, they could feel anyone with tainted mana from miles away. What followed suit was a tragedy as the elves would try their best to dispose of them. Because of this, Mo Jinhao was forced only to send a relatively weaker unit. But even then, this was plenty to kill 876 many times over. The last time he checked, 876 was in the rank range. So anyone from the tracking squad was enough to get rid of him. Especially Xavier, who was rank himself. If he couldn't do it, he deserved to die. Rubbing his beard, Mo Jinhao reminded. Make sure to be careful. Although 876 is weak, he's a crafty one. Having seen his exploits with the cameras, 876 knew just how terrifying his analytical and planning abilities were. Even though he was weak, he was not an opponent to go easy again. Suddenly waving his hand in the air, a small circular object appeared in Mo Jinhao's hand. Flicking his wrist, the object quickly flew in Xavier's direction, who caught it with his right hand. This the tracking device? Xavier asked. Yes. Mo Jinhao responded before his eyes narrowed and the room's temperature dropped. Quickly get rid of 876. Actually, do me one better. If you can, bring him to me alive. As you wish. Casually tossing the tracker in the air and playing with it, Xavier lowered his head. I'll get this done within half a year. All right. Thank you. Turning around, Xavier left the room. Following from behind him were his unit members. Clank. Once the door closed, silence prevailed over the room. Staring in the direction of where Xavier had left, Mo Jinhao's eyes narrow as he muttered. I hope you succeed in your mission. Xavier. For what he had done to the monolith. And him. Mo Jinhao was going to make 876 pay dearly. The blazing sun had set, and darkness enveloped the sky. The crackling sound of wood burning rang out inside of the forest.
Ha!
Amidst the fiercely burning fire, I sat and stared at the fire opposite to me. It had only been a day since I ventured out of the human domain, and everyone was tired. Apart from Small Snake and I, who were on night watch, everyone had fallen asleep in their tents. Ren, now that we've left, can you tell me what are your plans? Disrupting the silence, Small Snake asked. With my eyes still lingering on the raging fire in front of me, I took a branch from next to me and casually threw it in the fire. Crack-a! The fire burned even more violently. If you're curious as to where we're going, then we're going to the Dwarven Domain. I responded after a while. Small Snake couldn't hide his curiosity and asked. The Dwarven Domain? Can I ask why we're going there? There are several reasons, but the main one is because I'm looking for someone to forge my sword. With the ore that I had gotten from the auction, I planned to create a new sword. As I've previously mentioned, only a few people could handle the ore that I had with me. Anywhere else, and the result would be a good artifact, but one with a lot of lost potential. Also, I think this is a great opportunity for you and Ryan. Good opportunity? Small Snake tilted his head. He was clearly confused by my answer. Perhaps I might not even have to wait for long before the chip inside of my head is removed. Wait, really? Yup. The dwarves were incredibly smart. There was a chance that they could create an artifact that could block whatever was installed in the chip inside of my head. Furthermore, if I could have them teach either Ryan or Small Snake, they would learn a lot. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Dwarves did, after all, like to interact with intelligent people. Okay, that makes sense. Small Snake tossed a branch into the fire. Then, what about after the Dwarven Domain? He asked. After?
Yeah.
Are we going back to the human domain? I shook my head and replied. No, there's something else. Something else? But I won't say much with regards to that as I'm not sure about the situation myself. Initially, in the novel, a massive conference would be held in about 2 to 3 years in the Elven domain. What made this conference special was that, for the first time since invading Earth, the elves, dwarves, and orcs agreed on allowing humans to participate. This was a monumental announcement as the whole human domain went into a frenzy as hope dyed their eyes. And of course, needless to say, Kevin and the others would participate. After going to the Dwarven domain, I planned to go to the Even domain, but given how the future was no longer reliable, I had to make backup plans. Still, that was for another time.
Ha!
Standing up, I stretched my back. What are you doing? Small Snake asked. Lowering my head and looking at him, I shrugged. Nothing, just stretching. Is that so? Small Snake replied. Then, lifting his head, he asked. Right, Ren, been meaning to ask. What did you mean by what you've said before? Regarding the people hunting us?
Yeah.
Nothing much. Just that we're going to be reversing the roles that we're playing. My goal was to quickly change the team's dynamic in a way that would soon get rid of our pursuers. But how? Aren't they stronger than us? For sure the monolith was going to have strong individuals come for his neck. Stronger? You could say that, but you forgot one thing. What? Smiling, I pointed at him. Me? A confused look appeared on Small Snake's face. Evidently, not having understood the joke. I've got you guys to help me. The mercenary group. A group filled with potential monsters. Us? Small Snake asked as he pointed at himself. Yes. How? Not just that. There's also a clear lack of information about me. All the monolith knew about me was my strength. Nothing else. This meant that they didn't know that I had multiple capable individuals working for me as well as a soon-to-be count-ranked demon. If I played my cards right, this tiny little pursuit would end up in a much more anticlimactic way than imagined. Turning my head and staring at the fire in front of me, I closed my eyes and softly muttered. Isn't it fun? What is? Small Snake asked. Opening my eyes, I responded. Hunting. I met Big Water. Tossing around the bed, the exact words repeated inside of Amanda's mind as she had trouble sleeping. What did you do with your brother? He bring me to eat candy and ice cream. Delicious. And then he also bring me to the park where play with. When was this? 4 days ago. Bits and pieces of their conversation started to enter her mind, continuously haunting her in her sleep. Because of this, Amanda couldn't sleep despite being tired. Auuu. This continued for a couple of hours until Amanda could no longer take it and sat up. Once she sat up, blinking her eyes, Amanda reached for her phone on the drawer beside the bed. She didn't know why, but parts of her conversations with Nola troubled her. Was it because it had something to do with Ren? Amanda didn't know. But all she did know was that she could no longer sleep. As she sat up, Amanda wondered to herself, did Nola really meet Ren? But she knew that that was impossible. Ren was dead. She saw it on TV. There was no question about it. Yet. Despite knowing this, doubt still flashed across her eyes. Biting her lips, Amanda turned on her phone and dialed a specific number. Ring. The phone rang. Hello? After 2 squeals, a groggy voice entered Amanda's ears. It became apparent to her that the person had just woken up. Maxwell, I want you to do something for me. Yes? It took a moment for Maxwell, who was on the other side of the phone, to realize who was speaking. Subsequently, the pitch of his phone raised. Young miss? Do you need anything? I want you to send me some surveillance footage. Surveillance footage? That's possible. The Demon Hunter Guild was the #1 guild in the world. So it wasn't hard for them to gain access to some of the CCTV cameras installed around the city. Tell me the time date. And who you want to have checked. Having contemplated for the whole night, Amanda already knew the answer to the questions as she promptly replied. 4 days ago, around 5 p.m., and I want you to check Nola. Nola? I want you to check what she did throughout the whole day. Though confused, Maxwell did not ask any questions and simply complied. Such a task, although troubling, was within his abilities. Understood. Anything else? No. Thank you. All right, give me an hour. Lowering her phone, Amanda hung up and took a deep breath. Slumping back on the bed, Amanda put her arm around her eyes and waited for Maxwell to message her back. Was what Nola said true? Could Rin have somehow survived? But that was impossible. She saw him die with her own 2 eyes. And why did he not reveal that he was still alive? Many questions emerged in Amanda's mind as she blankly stared towards the dark ceiling of her room. Trying. A message arrived on her phone, ending her thoughts at that moment. As Maxwell promised, in just 1 hour, he had already done what she had asked him to do. Nervously staring at her phone, Amanda quickly unlocked it. Then, checking her mail, she soon saw multiple video files attachments. Tapping on the screen of her phone, she slowly started to watch the recording. Soon, the screen enlarged, and the video started playing. The first video started with Nola getting picked up by a middle-aged looking man. Nothing looked out of the ordinary from there. However, things quickly changed as she went through the following few videos. That was because instead of bringing Nola home, the middle-aged man brought Nola around the whole city. He did exactly what Nola had said she had done with her brother. Her heart started to beat wildly. Bringing the phone closer to her, biting her lips, she thought. Did Nola perhaps mistake him for her brother? It was a possibility, but she quickly discarded such a thought. Nola, though young, would not mistake her brother for a middle-aged man that bore no resemblance to him. Skin masks did exist, after all. As her train of thoughts paused there, swallowing a mouthful of saliva, her heart started to beat wildly. Hugh. Taking a deep breath to calm herself down forcefully, Amanda checked out the last video. With her eyes glued to the screen of her phone, as soon as she opened the last video, Amanda's body trembled, and her phone dropped out of her hands. Covering her mouth with both hands, she muttered, "Oh God." The image of the middle-aged man hugging his parents and kissing Nola in the head in front of their apartment complex was reflected on the screen of the phone.